evening, everybody, and how are we all doing today? It is Sunday, the 21st of July, 2024. I've got to say, where has this month gone? It just seems to have completely flown by. I just don't think there's been any time to do anything. It's just been such a rush. Oh, I'm looking forward to retiring when I get a lot of time to do exactly what I want to do. Shouldn't be wishing time away like that, should I? How are we all doing? Now, coming up today, we're going to be talking about edible hedging. This is a subject that I think is a great subject. It's something we don't often discuss, but I think it is a subject open for a lot of discussion. Before that, let's see if we've got anybody joining us. And over on Instagram, Allotment Cooks has joined. Welcome along. Let's have a look over here on the everywhere else. Cillian is joining. Good evening, everyone. Great topic tonight. Indeed, it is. Adrian is joined. Good evening to you. Turbo Stream. Good evening, Veg Podcasters. Good evening to you. We have got Seat to Table. Scott, good evening, all. Good evening to you. Billy SBB. Hello, everyone. Good evening to you. Digwell says a bit or education for you. Good evening, fellow Gardeners in Haitian Creole. Bonsoir, Van Mil Jardin. I think there's a slight French twang to that, isn't there? Allotted Chef, evening all. Good evening to you. My dad, good evening to you. Kate, good evening, Veg Army. Good evening to you. And Anna Jones, good evening, Gardeners. Good evening to you. Good evening, everybody. How are we doing? Back over on Instagram, the little black and white cat has joined, and Darren Bale has also joined. Welcome along. Hope you are both well. So let's get into it, shall we? Let's discuss this topic. Oh, just saw Rebecca, just saw on Instagram. Good evening. Hope you've all got the sunshine. It's been lovely this weekend, I've got to say. Now, let's get into it. Edible hedging. This is something that I think we should grow more of. As you know, I love growing my edibles. Everything I grow has to be edible or benefit my edibles in some way. And when I took on my allotment, one of the things I wanted to do was create an edible hedge around the sides, just so instead of a fence, it was something productive and what have you. Technically, we weren't allowed to do it, I've discovered, but the idea was there. And it's not unheard of. There are lots of examples of edible hedging up and down the country. Farmers used to grow rows of apples to separate their fields as well. Reason being is that apples, of course, produced an edible crop. So lots of things that we could do. So I guess the first question I should ask you all, has anybody grown an edible hedge? Or does anybody want to grow an edible hedge? Now, while you guys answer that, I will get more into my thoughts behind this and what I've always, excuse me, always thought would be a good idea of all the various tricks that we could do. So edible hedging, of course, apples for one thing we could do. Now, these could be trained apples, which is espalier trained, where you have branches basically going like that, maybe 1, 2, 3 branches just going out like that. That's a great example of an edible hedge because they look like a fence. I see them quite often in stately homes. I think they look fantastic. You can do that with pears as well. And then, of course, currants. Red, white and black currants could be used to make some sort of hedging as well. Gooseberry bushes and various things like that. But let's stick with the trees as ideas. Has anybody got any thoughts on any edible hedging that they might like to add to the list? There's quite a few out there, but as I said, has anybody created an edible hedge? So quickly, Richard Golden has joined. Hello all, good evening to you. And Turbo Stream says we had 28 degrees C on Friday, too hot for me. It was quite warm Friday. Yesterday was warm as well. Today has been warm too. I just don't think the weather can make its mind up. Digwell says, not grown one yet, but I've just started to plant a berry and currant windbreak from my new plot. Not quite a hedge, but close. But actually, this is kind of the point that I want to get across, is that we could be growing a hedge or a fence for a wide number of reasons. And one could be to use as a windbreak to prevent some of that strong winds coming along to your plot. There's a reason that Victorian gardeners, obviously inside their walled gardens, they would also use box hedging around the edges of their plots in order to create a windbreak and create the right microclimates. Uh, Box was easy to propagate, quite cheap, and it looked quite good, but they needed a lot of time just trying to keep it straight. And there is box blight that is causing a lot of issues at the moment. But in place of box, we could use rosemary, lavender, and maybe even thyme or something like that in place of box hedging. That's some of the thoughts that I have had with this very subject in order to try and produce more on that. Turbo Stream says, does a row of raspberries count as a hedge? I have a short border of gooseberries too. Yeah. Does it count as a hedge? I could say, I guess it would. Yeah, I guess it would. But would you view it as a hedge, or is there plenty of gaps in between? Because this is where the definition of a hedge might become a little difficult to comprehend. Chili Phil, evening all, just back from the allotment, picking potatoes for dinner. Been away for a week and come back to a proper jungle. Always away, isn't it? Idaho says, hello, Richard and everyone. Good evening to you. Nicholas says, evening, Richard. And oh, sorry, I'm a little late, staying in Sussex for the weekend. Fantastic. There we go. So let's have a quick check on nothing going on over on Instagram. So, yes. So what is a hedge? What would be our definition of a hedge? For me, the hedge would be there to create a boundary or to create a windbreak. I think that's the definition for me. Why we would have a hedge is to create a boundary and a windbreak. It's going to serve a purpose. It's going to create a defined line. And again, I come back to the farmers where they would grow apples down the side, and even blackberries for that matter. Blackberries along the borders of their fields to create that hedging, and then of course it would be edible. Great example, Jeremy Clarkson on his recent episode or recent series of Clarkson's Farm. He was trying to harvest all the blackberries. Not easy to harvest, are they? But he's trying to harvest all the blackberries to try and turn a bit more profit, which I'm all for that. I'm all for making things more edible. So why would we have a hedge that isn't edible as gardeners? So let's go back to my thoughts. Now, I've got a few plans of what I'm going to be doing here at home. And let me get my words out. I've got a few thoughts of what I'm going to be doing here at home as well as down on the allotment. One of the big things that I want to do is espalier apple and pear trees. And these are basically where you train them. And I want them to have at 2, maybe 3 branches going out like that. So that would be one branch, lower down another one, and then lower down another one, just with the central stem going out, and you have these 3 rows of branches going out from either side. That is what I want, particularly in my garden, but also on my allotment, which just means you keep the height under control. If you have height restrictions, it creates a nice looking fence that also produces apples and pears. So a lot of reasons for doing it, and definitely something that I want to do here at home. And then on other walls, we're going to be fan training other fruit trees and bushes against fences and things, just so that I can then sort of create a fence up against hedges. Then when we go out the front, I've been growing a lot of pots in, a lot of fruit trees and bushes in pots out the front, and they are out there for a very good reason, because it uses my front garden. We did have a privet hedge out there, which I've removed, and in its place I've put these pots, and we've got red, white and black currants. We've got apple trees, pear trees, cherry trees. My Szechuan pepper plant is out there, and these are all just around the border to create a type of hedging. So yeah, definitely something I think we have got a lot to think about. So quite a few comments coming in. It's hoping you can all add to this conversation. Graham says, evening everyone, hope you are all well. Thank you very much. Hope you are well too, Graham. Turbo Stream says, I'm probably going to move both in the winter to the strawberry patch, as they haven't produced on in the 4 years on the plot. Even the new runners are useless. I'm probably going to move both in the winter. I'm going to move both. What have I missed something? Oh, raspberries. Are you going to move your raspberries in the winter? Is that what you're saying? Idaho says the weather has been scorching, 107 degrees F over 41 degrees C. It's been warm here as well, at long last. Although typical, we're all complaining it's too hot. Hi all, says Ian. Welcome along, Ian. Idaho says hi, Anna. Turbo Stream, I like the idea of a row of small apples on my plot though. You know what, when it comes to, you've got to get the right apple trees if you want to make them into a hedging. And there's several ways you could do it. As I said, my idea is doing the espalier trains, so I think they look good. But you could also get cordons, which again, get the right varieties, but they're just a central stem and they fruit on that central stem. They're quite compact and you can get quite a few in a tight area. They look awesome as well. Again, I'm going back to West End Garden, a place that I've visited quite a few times, and they've got some stunning examples of how you can create these sort of edible hedging down there. Cordon apple trees, cordon pear trees, quite a few things. Quite often the patio trees that you can buy from garden centres or online, they usually are the cordon variety. Whereabouts in Sussex, says Richard to Nicola. Scott says, how much space would one tree span? I love the idea, but could get costly, but I guess it would never need replacing. So how much space? It does depend on the variety and what you do with it. So for example, the cordon is literally just the size of a central stem. So, you know, that much, I'm trying to show it, that much ground, maybe a bit more, but not much. The espalier, you know, you have to keep up with your pruning to try and control the size. But again, it could be as big as you want it. And again, because it's only a stem going like that, there's nothing going front and back. It's literally just going left to right. It's nothing going back and front. So you're controlling it that way. Anne says, hi all, I've planted a rosemary hedge, more decorative than edible, around my old plot with my old tradition. Around my old plot was an old traditional hedge. It contained hazel, honeysuckle, sloe, hawthorn, hop, roses, all edible. There we go. This is what I want. I want to find out more about this and some ideas. Hazel, honeysuckle, sloe, hawthorn, hop, and roses, all edible. Great stuff. Muddy Boots has joined. Good evening, my friend. Hope you are well. Digwell says, how to tell the age of an ancient tree. Count the number of different woody species in a 30-meter stretch, 2 or 3 times. Every variety indicates 100 years. So 5 types equals 500 years. Fantastic, fantastic. Toby Stream says, can you plant patio fruit in open ground? You can. Absolutely, you can. And in fact, they will probably do better in open ground. They are basically, these patio, they have been grafted onto a rootstock that reduces the growth or the size of the tree that they get. And I forget all the details because all the numbers are different if it's apples or pears. But basically, the smaller rootstocks, the smaller trees, they are going to be doing better in the pots. And that's where these patio trees come from. But they can absolutely go in open ground and nothing stopping you from that. Let's have a quick check over on Instagram. Stafford Justice and Peace 2017 has joined. Now, Anne just gave a couple more examples of some other things that we can grow. And I'll come back to my allotment at this point, because as I said, when I first took it on, I did want all the edging to be a type of edible hedge. It didn't quite work out, but in it, I planted a hazel tree, cherry tree, elder tree. There was a sloe tree, as well as the currant bushes and things like that, and what have you, currants, raspberries, those sort of things. The trouble I had with them, in all honesty, the hazel is still there. It does fantastic, but we coppice it for hazel sticks so we can use those for growing our beans and peas up. The cherry tree I do have to prune, or just recently pruned anyway. It's quite compact, quite close together, so they've taken up quite a bit of space. They perhaps weren't quite right for that area. The elder tree, same sort of thing. It's gone. Well, it's a messy tree. It really is a messy tree. It does fantastic for wildlife and elderflowers and elderberries, but it just looks very untidy, very difficult to keep it under control as well. And that's something that's going to be coming out. But as I said, I want to replace it. But we do have the pear tree there, which does fantastic. The hazel tree, as there is an apple tree in the corner as well, just a small little apple tree. But we want to build more onto this hedging. Digra says, I've just done that with a plum and cherry. Are you talking about the patio fruit in open ground? Let me know. Anne says, saw two-tiered espalier fruit hedge in Monet Garden and always hope someday to one day have the opportunity to build my own. Funny enough, Anne, this has been on my mind for quite a while, and in the winter I am doing it. I am buying. I've got one already. It cost me £15 from Gardeners World Live. It's an apple tree. It's a single stem apple tree at the moment. It's first year. It's 1 year old. So we're going to plant that in the ground, and then we're going to cut it off. I didn't want to spend a fortune on these trees when I did this, because when you're cutting quite a bit of it off, and trees can cost 60 quid, it feels very wrong to cut the top off. But I'm going to cut the top off and create it into an espalier, and then we'll let it grow and we'll produce the next few layers. I've been looking at a lot of nurseries, because in the autumn time we can buy bare rooted trees, and that's definitely something I'm going to be buying a lot more of in order to create this sort of edible hedging. Espaliers, they seem apples and pear trees seem like the only ones we can do that with. Step over apple trees as well would fall into that category too. Over on Instagram, Jamie's little allotment has joined and is waving. Welcome along. Hope you are well. And View from a Lake has also joined as well. Tabby Stream, I might look into planting a short row of dwarf fruit in the fruit section once the strawberries have gone. You can often get some real bargains. I would also urge you to look at bare rooted trees, because they are really cheap. Digwell planted patio types on the plot. Fantastic. I'm sure they will do fine. Sounds like a plan. Margaret says, as you know, we have 2 espalier apple trees we planted 3 years ago. No fruit year 1, of course. A few last year, and this year much better. However, the foxes have been in and eaten the unripe apples. Yeah, there's that nature, pests. I mean, foxes are everywhere at the moment, like so many things. But yeah, when you are making an espalier like this, they are going to take a long time. I've got a really good book on how to train apple trees, and well, how to train and fruit trees and all that sort of thing. I'm reading at the moment, and even creating my espalier fencing, it's a 3-year project at least. Digwell says Tesco had espalier and fan trained apples for £15 a few weeks ago. Didn't see them. They didn't sell them here, but for £15, I don't think that's bad at all, bad price at all. Most nurseries and places I've been looking at, you're looking 60 quid. Certainly down on the south coast anyway. Nigel says Pomona fruits sell good quality fruit trees. Not the cheapest, but great quality. Yeah, I mean, you do want good quality. Always want good quality, because they are going to last so much better. These are an investment, not something that is just going to sit around and wait, or in sort of January to March time. I've done this before in the past. That Wilco's and Tesco's and Morrison's, to name a few shops, they would sell some of these apple trees or fruit trees quite cheap. They were bare rooted, and I've bought them in the past, but they quite often I've found to be mislabeled. They're not the best quality. You pay for what you get. I think they were like £5 at the time. I think they're now £7 or £8 to buy them. That being said, I have been buying some of the bargain discount corners in a certain shop called The Range, which is Not my favourite place to go to, but when it's £3 for a cherry tree, I couldn't say no. Turbo Stream says, we'll be in the winter, so bare fruited trees only unless I see a bargain, of course. Yeah, you can't go far wrong with bare rooted fruit trees as long as you get it in as soon as possible. On Instagram, Jamie's Little Allotment says, I love a step over apple tree. I do too. I really do. This is what I'm saying. I'm going to be creating more of these apple trees and trying to train them in different ways. Unfortunately, I can't on Instagram. I can't bring your message up, but yeah, I want to see more of these step over apple trees and pear trees to try and make the most out of it. I've read that one, but it's not just fruit trees, of course. It is fruit bushes and other things like that. Currants are a great example of something that can make some quite nice low hedging, I guess you could say. You plant them a bit closer than you would normally plant them because you're creating a hedge here. They will still produce fruit, maybe not as much if they had a bit more space. And again, training them, you do have to keep them quite well trained, but they will produce fruit. One of the other things that I was thinking of as well was dog rose. I thought that was a great example of something we could use. And this comes actually, dog rose, I think, really big, thick thorns on it. But the fruits on it make a beautiful rose hip jelly, which is very, very healthy, absolutely delicious. But those thick thorns are the ultimate insecurity because they are worse than blackberries. Of course, blackberries are something else we could use as a type of edible hedge. Right, let's see. Nigel says some of the cheaper stores do not list what root stocks they are on. Totally right there. Totally right. This is why if you are going to make this investment, I think it's well worth going to a decent nursery. They are online and they can give you really good information. The apple tree I got came from Frank P. Matthews. They were selling them at Gardener's World Live. £15 for an apple tree. I could not say no. And it's still alive 2 months on. So it's going well. It is going well. Turbo Stream says, my blackcurrant was from Poundland. It only had one leaf. This year it produced a good harvest. I'm not going to knock it, but you do have to be aware. I've seen them in Poundland, and sometimes they look dead. You pay for what you get, but you can be lucky. Keep the pruners sharp. Said did go out tonight. I'm not sure what that's about. And says, I have used Southern Fruit Trees and would recommend. Southern Fruit Trees is the company I'm currently looking at, actually. I think Ian, I don't know if he's still here. Ian is a friend with them. So I'm hoping we can do something with those guys to try and create a good a good podcast talking about this very subject and bare rooted fruit trees and things like that. I mean, I do love a good nursery. Right, I'm going to quickly sidestep this conversation quickly and head on over to the mission. I haven't made the mission for this week, but this week you challenged me to make something from everything or stuff that I've harvested from the plot, i.e. cook something. And I have came up with something. So let me bring this on the overhead camera. Oh, wrong way. There we go. It's a bowl of green stuff. Let me put it like that. What is it, you wonder? Basically, what I've made is a pea pesto. So this is peas, basil, olive oil, pine nuts, parmesan, garlic, and bit of seasoning as well. This was just a bit of an idea to a lot of basil that needed using up. Peas are in season, and I thought I'd make a pesto with it. It's going to go lovely, I hope, on some pasta. But I thought this would make a good mission. Let's give it a try. I've also added in some parmesan as well. I've got to add that. I think I might have added a bit too much garlic because I can smell the garlic from here. It is strong. But yeah, that is nice. That's really nice, actually. Might have been a touch too much garlic, maybe a bit too much pine nuts, but it is delicious. That'll go really well on pasta and things like that. So definitely looking forward. Definitely that. Hopefully you guys will agree with me. That is mission accomplished. If that is so, give us a thumbs up. At that point, don't forget to like, follow, subscribe, click the notifications so you know when we go live. Quick look over on Instagram. Matt Saunders has joined. Welcome along. Hope you are well. Turbo Stream, it took a few years, but this year I made my £1 back. That, yeah, £1. You know, these Poundland, you can get some bargains, same as the range. It's just the quality of how well they looked after in these places. I've gone into them and I've seen them looking dead, and they're still trying to sell them, and that's what puts me off. But you can get some bargains. Turbo Stream says posh mushy peas, peas, pea pesto. Great idea. I'm stealing that one. You're welcome. You're welcome. It was delicious. It really is. It would go even better on pasta. But pea pesto, fantastic. I had to do something that Scott didn't do as well. I thought I was only right. Rebecca says, "Oh, that sounds good. It is good. It is good." Basically, you're making a pesto with added peas. Digwell, my latest vid has 5 pea recipes. Nudge, nudge. Go check that out on the Digwell Greenfingers YouTube channel. He does like his cooking over there. Right. So let's take a stand back from fruit trees. I think we get the idea that a lot of options for fruit trees. I'm really looking forward to creating my espalier trees and my step over trees. It's going to cost me a fortune in trees, which is why I'm looking for the best prices possible, because I've calculated I need about 10 trees to do what I really want to do. But fruit, let's go to fruit bushes and how can we make those into a hedge. I certainly think that currants and mixing them up. So what I would do, if I had a row of hedges, I would mix it up, or a row to fill it up. So maybe a black currant followed by a gooseberry, maybe a bigger apple tree or something. And then basically I'll have the row mixed up to try and add a bit of variation. Obviously, things like blackberries, tayberries, they can get quite big, so they may not work in this large mixed area. Now, I've mentioned tayberries there. I don't know if anybody, I'm sure you've all heard of tayberries. It's not one that is often known, certainly not something you can buy in a shop. But on my old allotment, my neighbour actually planted one tayberry bush, and I've got a similar thing out in the garden. And the tayberry bush literally created a hedge on its own. It was 10 meters wide. It got so that on its own just proves that something like a tayberry bush, quite a thorny plant, really prolific, but they don't store very well, produces some good quality fruits while making a hedge at the same time. Turbo Stream says mission accomplished. A pea shed, accomplished. Excellent. And says my original cordon apple trees from them are now approximately 30 years old. Moved once after 10 years and are still growing well in their second ham, but alas, not mine anymore. Fantastic. Talking about southern fruit trees. So I'm sure Ian is a friend with them. So I think they're near Blackmore, aren't they, based? Idaho says, spread that stuff on some thick sliced bread. That's an idea. That is an idea, and totally. Coming over onto Instagram. Digwell's joined us on Instagram. A view from the lake says, I brought pink champagne currants and gooseberry bushes, just one each. Will they spread quickly? So, yes and no. I mean, gooseberries are quite fast growing actually, but they are more what you would call a bush type. So they're not necessarily going to create the hedge where they go out in all directions, but you're going to have to prune them to create a decent shape. And the currants as well. Currants, again, we all know what currants are like. They tend to grow stems. So you have to train them, maybe even add some supports to really hold them into place. But they will produce a decent sort of hedge. Again, it's all about the pruning. You're going to have to spend a lot of time pruning. And bear in mind, this is one of the reasons I think box was used a lot in the past. In the winter, they're going to lose their leaves, so they're going to look quite bare in the winter. And that could be a problem, especially if you're trying to reduce wind coming in. But it will work. It will still work. Idaho says, oh no, I've read that one. Sorry. Digwell says, just a thought. I'd see what it was like over on Insta, Facebook next. Yeah, please do let us know what's it like on Facebook as well. Because I put it to Facebook. I think I've shared it in the group, but I can't see what's going on in the group anymore because of Instagram and its and Facebook and its walls. And there he is. Oh, I get everywhere. There he is on every channel. Right. Yeah, so currants, gooseberries, raspberries could work. In fact, my raspberries I've got out here, they pretty much do create a hedge. They're pretty big at the moment, actually. But I pot them going. I got the autumn raspberries on one end, on one side of the garden, and then the summer raspberries on the other side of the garden. And they were there to hedge off the vegetable garden so that you had to walk through into another room, if you like, through these raspberries. And it kind of works. It does actually work quite well. The raspberries at the moment are growing like great guns, and I need to thin them out quite urgently. But they have created this quite nice hedge area that kind of hides the compost bins, if I'm honest with you. It's one of the things I wanted to do is hide the compost bins because I think compost bins can look quite ugly. And it's worked really well for that. It really, really has. Kate says, Digwell on tour. Rob Solomon Garden says, good evening all. Sorry, not in the chat. Got a couple of friends around and having a few drinks. Fantastic, fantastic. And Nigel says, for gooseberries, I prefer the thornless red Pax variety. Yeah, I'm with you on that. The thorns on gooseberries are up there. They're not quite as bad as blackberries or even rose hips, but they are quite thorny, aren't they? And I'm looking at getting some thornless varieties. But what I would say, if you are creating a hedge to be more of a security feature than decorative, but still wanting to produce food, then you might want the thorns. Just a little thought I had on that. But yeah, the thornless gooseberries variety. Trying to think what else we could do. I mean, all the fruit trees and all fruit bushes and things like that can be used quite well. So there's plenty of options. And I come back to things like the hazel, the hazel, obviously we get hazelnuts. And this is something we don't often talk about, nut trees. But hazelnuts, obviously we get hazelnuts from it, but we also get the sticks. And it's not uncommon for them to be used in making fencing and things like that as well, which is why I love growing hazels, because it's just so great, just so versatile and edible. Digwa says, I'm trying raspberry two-timer. It fruits on new and old stems. 2 crops a year. I'll check that one out. I will check that one out. The trouble is sometimes it can get, excuse me, can get quite expensive trying to choose what we're going to buy all these fruit trees and bushes sometimes, isn't it? We can get very, very carried away, but these are permanent. These are what we need to invest in sometimes. Lavender hedge, Digwell has said. Lavender, yeah, that goes in with rosemary and lavender. And what else did I say? Thyme. I think you could probably use sage as well. And I've kind of, you're giving me ideas now, actually, because I'm talking about doing step overs and things like that in my garden here at home. But I'm thinking I would like to do a rosemary or a lavender hedge around them instead, to create the sort of box hedging we were talking about earlier. That garlic is quite fiery, but the box hedging, lavender and rosemary, I think would really replace that quite well. Difficult to stop it from going woody, but if you prune it regularly, it should work. Rob says spaghetti hedges are good. What are spaghetti hedges? Let us know a bit about spaghetti hedges. I've never heard that term. Turbostream says, I have red gooseberries, but they have thorns and very vigorous. Yeah, not sure of the variety. I might have to take them out or pot them into pots. Good luck trying to take them out because those thorns are a killer. It's obviously there to protect the fruits, and it certainly does a good job of doing that. Um, yeah, I'm trying to think of anything else we could use. Anything else? I think I've listed everything of my notes I covered in doing this. Um, the important thing I think is to remember blackberries as a great hedging plant we could use. Very natural, of course, found in this country. Very thorny, can grow quite big, and you know, get the hedge cutter out quite regularly to keep it in shape. I think that if we're going to do this, and I'm really buoyed at the ideas. I'm just sort of thinking I can go and take some rosemary and lavender cuttings and start going around one of my beds with some of those just to try and do that. Now, on that note, I've just seen this from Nigel. I've just released a video on how to propagate lavender. Wink, wink again. So if you have got a lavender plant, I've got a huge one out the front there. It's in flower. It's right by my van at the moment, my car, sorry, and it just smells of lovely, lovely lavender. Um, and I'm just thinking I'll take lots of cuttings of that to try and get some more for that. Digwell says, Penny, for your thoughts, talking about the spaghetti hedging. What is spaghetti hedge? Let me know. Let me know, please. Turbo Stream, you could have blueberries in pots, I guess. Blueberries would work. Would they work in the hedging? I guess wouldn't do any harm. You would need them in pots because of the ericaceous soil they need, the acidic soil they need. Which is probably why I wouldn't necessarily use them in a mixed hedging. If you were to grow them in one row just of blueberries, that would probably work instead. Blueberries are a very finicky or funny fruit to grow. I've just suddenly thought, oh, blueberry is going to be ready. I'm going to have to harvest some of those tomorrow. Digras says, oh, I'll check that out. Lavender. I'm propagating lavender. I'm going to check that out as well because I'm going to be taking some cuttings of my lavender quite soon. My gooseberries have thorns and they are lethal, so thornless sounds great. You know what? I've been thinking this a lot over the last few weeks. I had a seed catalogue drop through my letterbox a couple of weeks ago, and I saw in there was a thornless variety of gooseberry, and I was just thinking that day there must be a thornless variety of gooseberry, and there it was. And I think I need to get some thornless gooseberries down on the allotment particularly, but they do have their added, as Kate says, gooseberries with thorns, good for security. Mine were absolutely lethal. Mine are in exactly the same state. In fact, I've got gooseberries in this hedging that I've built, but the trouble with the thorns, and this is what I'm discovering, is that it's been very difficult to really get in there and tidy that area up because my arms get shredded to pieces trying to move all the weeds. We've got bindweed and brambles in those amongst those gooseberry bushes, and then at the top with my neighbours, we've got the nettles growing for the gooseberries as well, which is just so difficult to try and get the weeds out of there, but we've got to. And that's why I've been thinking about the thornless varieties. Nigel says, are you sure the spaghetti hedge is not a ham? And he goes on to say ambush, ambush. Oh, great. I love it when you guys come out with some puns. Turbo Stream, I'm enjoying my blueberries from my patio pot these last few weeks on my morning porridge. Lovely, lovely. It is nice to get fresh fruit, isn't it? My summer raspberries at the moment, every morning I'm getting summer raspberries, red currants, white currants, use them on pancakes and everything like that. It's so nice to have fresh food every day. Nigel, what are you laughing at that? Let's check on Instagram. Skinny Jean Gardner has joined over on Instagram. How you doing, my friend? Right. What do we do next? Anybody got any questions or anything they would like to add? Because I feel like I'm leading this conversation and just going off what I've been researching all week. Has anybody got anything they would like to add? And is anybody feeling inspired to anybody feeling inspired to go and create their own hedge fund? Digwell says, if you are having trouble with saving up enough money for your plans, Richard, you could set up a hedge fund. We need a hedge fund. We need a hedge fund, don't we? We do need a hedge fund. An edible hedge fund that we can't liquidate. Oh, Rob says it all, laughing. I love it. I love it. Keep those puns coming. Has anybody got any thoughts or anything they would like to share on this subject? Let us know in the comments. Now, going slightly off subject here, I want to let you know, you may remember a couple of weeks ago, I said that I found some knives on my allotment. Well, I found 4 knives in total now, and the police were pretty useless, I'll be honest with you. But the council, I had a phone call from them on Friday. They were double checking everything to make sure nothing else has happened. They have been fantastic. And it's reminded me that the council are there to be approached. And so, yeah, I've never contacted the council or anything about the allotment, but now that I've contacted them twice this year now, they have been fantastic, and I will take back everything bad I've ever said about them, because they really have been on the ball and trying to sort things out. Turbo Stream says, I do need advice on pruning my blueberry. The bottom branch died off, so the bush is top heavy now. So you might have to put a bit of support. Blueberries are pretty hardy plants, and I think the thing with blueberries is you try and do as little as possible with them, so they should be okay. But you might want to put a cane in just to give it a bit of support. And that's all I would say. It will grow, it will bush out. You may want to take some cuttings, try and get some more blueberry plants off it. That might be an idea. Digwell says, be careful with the knives. Look sharp. Indeed. More puns are coming out there, isn't there? Please do keep sharing any tips you've got for blueberries, as Tabby Stream has asked. The Seed to Table Plot 13, Scott, has also joined Instagram. Is he doing the rounds now to see what's going on all the channels? Right. I tell you what, shall we go to a video that I've been sent? This one comes in from Digwell. It's kind of related, actually. And I'll go to it, and then I'll tell you why I think it's kind of related.
Guys, how's it going? Do you remember a couple of weeks back I did a plot tour for you? But today I just want to do a bit more detail and show you just how well the straw bales are doing. Wow, look at this lot. This is the first 8 bales that I put down the wrong way, because the straw is going across the way and not up and down the way. But look at the blooming crops I got in there. I'll go through them all. I'll probably miss some out, but Grano Violetto broad beans, been picking a few of those. Not a great harvest, but I only put 2 or 3 little plants in. Loads of trailing Bocana, is it Bocanpa? I can't remember now at the front there. Right then, Calabrese. We've already had a few of these. Ooh, yeah, some little baby ones popping up there. We're on, and a big one from there, and some more popping up there. What we got here? pretty sure this is purple sprouting. Let me have a look. Yeah, it's Calabrese purple. Yeah, it's summer Calabrese purple. Look at that. Cape gooseberries tucked in there, look, loads growing on there. Orange balm and some lettuce at the end. Borage, look at that borage. Ooh. And that's about it for that row really, because that was done as a single row. Now let's go to the next one over. Again, loads of trailers. Marigolds, tomato, tiny temptations, loads on there. You'll see all the silver tape there to stop the pigeons and things. Swede, miscellaneous swede next to that. Going over the back row first. More beetroot in there. Oh, more beetroot, more beetroot. Well, let's come over here. We got a few little things haven't worked properly, like that tomato. If I do them again like that, I'll need to put a little bit more compost into the bale to give them a foothold, you know what I mean? A couple of shallots there. Got some onions growing. We've got some more shallots in there and some leeks. Potatoes, they are kestrel, I believe. Where's my map? Yeah, kestrel potato. Let's nip over here a minute. We've got a Virginia rooster squash growing there. There's the potatoes. We've got up the side now. We got direct sown radish here. I better pick some of these actually. And with the direct sown ones, you need to put a bit of compost on top of the bales, look, for them to seed into, to grow into. That's a tromboncino climbing down there. That's a sweet potato. Taken off a bit now that the weather's warmed up. It was quite slow to get going. And well, that's that lot of bales. Crikey, I mean, there's some stuff in there, isn't there? What a mixed lot, eh? Okay, then here's the next bales. These are just two that I put in at the last minute the right way round, so the straw's going up and down. And what we got in here then, so, ooh, crikey. All along the front, we have tomatoes, golden pearl. Again, some are growing and some are struggling. So, lesson learned, next year, put a bit more compost in. We've got kohlrabi, blue azure. What we got here? Chili, basket of fire, look at that. Ooh, the odd lettuce here and there. We've got aubergines growing, that's a Rosa Blanca. Hestia dwarf runner beans, no point doing big runner beans in the straw bales. Super schmerzel kohlrabi there. That's going nice and purple, that's all right. More basket of fire. More tomatoes, and there's a cucumber there, Beth Alpha. I just picked those two off it. I picked 4 the other day, and there's 2 more. They're growing better there than the cucumbers in the proper frame. Oh, look, didn't see them. The runner beans have been pollinated. Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. So, I mean, crikey, this. Now, that is quite a lot of produce in just 2 bales. £4 each, and a bit of fertiliser. I hope you enjoyed this one, guys. Catch you soon.
There we go. That was the video from Digwell. Great video there. I've got to say, really enjoyed that, and thoroughly good to see the straw bales are working out for you. They didn't work for me, but I think I know where I went wrong. Now, I thought that was related to what we're talking about, because I could see hedging made of straw bales or edging made of straw bales working quite well. And in fact, Scott says that, well, I'm definitely going to try hay bale growing next year after seeing the hay bale edible fence. But they need replacing every year, I guess. Yeah, they would. They might get 2 years out of them, but yeah. I saw what I was going to do with my hay straw bale, was put them alongside my fence between my compost bins to reduce the weeds down in that area as well. And try and grow on top of that, particularly squash. Didn't get around to doing it this year. Maybe next year. I know where I went wrong. I don't think I used the right fertilizer to get the heat up. Great video. Thank you so much, Digwell. There was a question, where was it? Talking about TurboStream with his blueberries. Can I prune the top back so it produces more lower branches? The only way it's going to produce any more lower branches is if you've got any live buds lower down. So if you have, then it's hope. If you haven't, then possibly not. Just you need to have a good look for any lower buds. That's what I would advise. Rob says, what has gone wrong with the chat? Is it still working okay? I'm assuming it is. Kate says, those bales look fab, dig well. Nicholas says, did you put super soil on the straw bales as well? Good question, actually. The allotment site I'm on is basically surrounded by an edible hedge. Yeah, blackberries, I'd bet in. But an edible hedge, there's a lot to be said for this, actually. And I'm thinking out loud. A lot of our natural edibles as well are hazelnuts, walnuts. A lot of the trees you might find in the wild blackberries and things like that would make a nice edible hedge. Nice may not be the right word, but a natural, that's the word, a natural edible hedge. Stigwell says to Scott, yes, replace them, but you have loads of mulch to use. Straw, not hay, mate. Hay is full of weed seeds. Thank you, thank you. And I've got to admit, so I spoke about this on the podcast. I had 5 straw bales last year that we tried to do straw bale gardening. It didn't really work for me. But I used those straw as a mulch this year on my beds. But I had to remove it because of slugs and snails in all but 2 of my beds. But those 2 beds have still got the straw, no weeding at all, and barely any watering is needed to happen as well. Fantastic use of materials. So I like straw a lot for that. It's just the slugs and snails. I'm hoping next week, for you guys are okay, we're going to talk about slugs and snails next week. Nicholas says, yes, one watering of super soil back in March. Super soil, of course, the stuff that adds good, healthy bacteria to soil. Well worth investing in if you can. While I was watching that video, I had a quick check on my emails. You know how you do. It's completely off topic, this one. And I had an email from somebody that literally said hello and bye. What was the point of that email? I felt like sending back an email saying, do not read this email. Pointless. Nothing going on over on Instagram. But here, TurboStream says, the bottom border of our allotment is all blackberries. I usually take a few harvests off them for jam. Why not? They're naturally found. Birds are probably going to enjoy them, but why not use them ourselves as well? Blackberries, what was it called during World War II? Hedgerow foraging. I can't remember what they called it. TurboStream says, I counted 50 slugs on my lawn this morning before I lost count. There's loads, isn't there? There is loads. I did find straw seemed to make the slugs and snails worse, which is why I'm I'm a bit worried about using it again. I'm just hoping that they're going to go soon. I really am. D. Grouse says, good point. Could you use it in the compost as well? I get the 2 mixed up. Did you do a video on how to set them up, mate? Yeah. I think I'm sure there is a video on his channel. Go check it out. Some mails get sent like that to invoke a reply and confirm the email address is genuine, to be followed by a shed load of spam. Yeah, I know. It just makes me laugh, isn't it? Hello and bye. What's the point? Right. What are we at? 18:55. By the way, I forgot to say, I think you said that was mission accomplished. I do need a mission or a challenge that you can set me for next week. Something fun, something get my teeth sunk into. There we go. Digwell does confirm he has a video on straw bale gardening back in March, I think. There we go. Fantastic. Any more ideas on edible hedging? Anybody want to throw anything else into the arena? Or anybody got any questions? Or is anybody wanting now, after tonight, Anybody wanting to start their own edible hedge? I've got quite a few ideas on things that I want to do. Um, Sometimes it's difficult because I come away from these shows thinking, yeah, I really want to do this and that. But I enjoy it. I enjoy it at the same time. Yeah, I'm trying to stall for some comment to come up to add something now because I've gone through all my notes. I think we've discussed everything we could possibly add in there. I think we've covered pretty much everything we could use. I can't think of any more. I can't think of any more. One thing I would add, actually, when we're talking about how we make the espalier trees or training in, something that we are going to be doing for our espalier trees is, of course, going to put in some fence posts. I've got to get a fence post rammer to try and put these fence posts in. But we're going to be putting in some fence posts and some taut wire at the levels where we want to tie in these espalier trees too, in order to try and make it really worthwhile, make it work quite nicely, and hopefully look good too. So something I just thought I'd better throw in there as a bit more to it. It's all gone quiet. I'm hoping the chat is still working. So yeah, next week I wanted to discuss with you about slugs and snails. I want to find out what methods you've done for tackling slugs and snails this year. I heard on the news that this year has been one of the worst reported years for slugs and snails. Worst is maybe the wrong word, but the highest levels of slugs and snails. So next week I want to find out from you what has worked and what hasn't. And I say this because I've lost so many squash plants and so many bean plants that it's a real struggle this year. It really is. So I want to discuss that next week if that is okay for you. Good, Digger was saying good topic, slugs and snails. I think it'd be interesting. It's a hot topic at the moment as well. I'm setting my posts for the raspberry trellis next week. Exactly what I was talking about. What are you using? Have you got a hedge fence post rammer, or are you using the sledgehammer to put them into place? I'm on the hunt for a fence post rammer at the moment for a reasonable price. Don't want to buy a brand new one, but a reasonably priced one. Turbo Stream says, I guess you could add climbing beans to a hedge, using it as a support. I guess you could. I mean, I'm guessing, I've got no idea if climbing beans, when they were discovered in the wild, I'm guessing they would climb up trees and things, as the name suggests. Although, might not. I don't know. But yeah, I guess you could. Lots of options is what we could do with all these things. Climbing beans could work, peas. But again, they're only going to be a temporary because they are annuals. Most of us really put a hedge in, particularly for the winter months when we want to create a bit of a windbreak, which is where I think currants and gooseberries, things that bend and flex in the wind, are going to be a bit better for that to combine with the wind, because it's going to flex. If it's rigid, more chance of it snapping. Dabby Stream says, I'm trying to work out a method for making a temporary fruit cage for next year. Well, got a few ideas. It depends what you mean by temporary, because temporary could also mean, or are you talking more something you can get hold of cheap? Upcycled, that's the word I'm looking for. Because my idea, I'll keep that question on the screen for a bit longer actually. My thought would be get some plastic piping used in plumbing, and then the angled 90-degree elbows to glue it all together, and then drape over some mesh. Some weird noises going on out there. That would be my thinking anyway, as a temporary thing. Of course, you could use wood and screw it together. It might be bit longer lasting, but it's an idea. I think the difficult thing is make it last. Digwell says a spade to dig the hole, a drill soil auger to drill down a bit deeper in the center of the hole, and fence post foam to anchor them in. There we go. There we go. I didn't even think about using concrete or anything. I was just going to do it straight in the ground like a farmer would do. Anne Wright says next challenge, a different slug snail trap, not a plastic bottle. You're on. That tallies up with the conversation for next week. So yeah, we would do that. TurboStream, using the bird netting and canes. Not sure I want to make a permanent one. Yes, cheap. Plastic pipe with 90 degrees elbow would be one of my thoughts. Nigel says, got a vid on nets and covers on my channel. Cheap and versatile. Go check that out on the Muddy Boots allotment channel. TurboStream says, thinking of threading the netting along the canes and rolling them up. I would always say when it comes to netting, make sure it is taut, strong, because one of the worst things is when birds get caught up in it, wrap their foot around it. I had it on my old allotment where I discovered a blackbird that had its foot caught around it, and I had to cut the string away. I might be Jack the gardener. Had to cut the string away to get this bird free. The poor thing. Yeah, I felt for her. Foam or concrete helps to stop the wood rotting in the soil. Not allowed concrete on our plot. You know, I've never heard of the foam, so I'm going to check that out because that might be exactly what we need. I think it might be. You know, I think it might be exactly what we need because we're not allowed concrete on our allotment either, but foam we might get away with, especially as our soil moves so much. I don't know if I've told you about this before. Our soil, like our washing machine, I can put it in straight upright, even with the stuff that's not meant to move, and it goes over like that. And it happens all over the place. We get subsidence goes on in our garden quite regularly. I think our house is on floating, whatever they call it, floating foundations to stop it from happening. And like even our road, you can see it going on in our road. This subsidence that goes on all over our place. Even the allotment suffers from it as well. TurboStream says, yes, I want it to be bird proof. Last thing I want is a trapped bird. Yeah, totally agree. One of the worst things about bad netting is that birds do get trapped, and it's not very pleasant for them at all. Saying that, my wife had a bit of a moan at me the other day. I went to work, I left the back door open without realising. My wife works from home, so it's not fun. Plus, anybody comes in, they got to face Roxy. But something did come into our kitchen, a bird. A blackbird found its way into a garden, got stuck and couldn't get out. And Amanda was not best pleased with me. He made a complete mess of the kitchen, as I'm sure you can imagine. Nigel says, if beds are a standard size, make frames out of the roof battens and cover with chicken wire. Yeah, that's a very good idea. Again, that's one of the advantages of having beds of the same size is that you can do this. You can make one frame that will fit all. TurboStream does say, I don't have beds, Nigel. I want something I can just erect just for the fruit ripening. Go check out Nigel's channel. My biggest problem I have with a lot of these things, this is why I don't like some of these as well, is storage. When we come the end of the season, we want to pack it away. There's nothing for me more annoying than having these huge structures to try and store away. And something I've always been quite clear of is that when storage is a big problem. I've got my granddad's, you've probably seen them, my granddad's cloches, these long metal things that we put corrugated plastic in. They're fantastic, absolutely fantastic. But when we're not using them, they're 1.5 meters long and there's 3 of them. Okay, they stack up. But I've got to find somewhere to store them where they are out the way. And it's difficult. It is very, very difficult. Scott says, I use fence posts and stapled the netting taut on them for my cage. There's an idea. And Digwell says, my robins often come into my house. Don't think they like Star Wars on the TV because they never stay long. But you're quite friendly with your robins, aren't you? I mean, the only good thing I've noticed, and I'm sure you might agree, if we're going to talk about slugs and snails next week, there's been an increase in birds. I've certainly noticed that in my garden anyway. Turbo Stream says, also nowhere to store a fruit cage. My friend used to make one each year from long poles. I can see why he did it now. Excellent, excellent. Right, I'm here again and can hear you, says Robs. Did you have a problem not hearing me earlier? Welcome along anyway. Try tuning into Robin's Nest. Jenny Quinn says, rubber snakes hung in the blueberry bushes helped keep the birds away. There's an idea. That's an idea. If you are, I don't like nets at all. I don't net anything because ADD, they get in the way, basically. So I'm looking for other options. Rubber snakes, I like that idea. Help keep the birds away. That makes sense as well. PMSL. Talking about Robin's Nest. I haven't checked Instagram. Nothing going on over there just yet. I can't see anything anyway. No, nothing going on just yet over there. Rob says, we had a female mallard come into our house last night. Poor thing. I mean, was it with your Chinese dinner as well? I mean, it's interesting, isn't it? Birds are getting bolder now. They seem to be coming into houses more. Interesting. Digwell says there seems to be a lack of butterflies this year. You're right there, actually. I haven't seen many butterflies. I haven't seen any cabbage white butterflies, thinking about it either. So you're onto something there, maybe because it just hasn't been warm enough for them. But slugs and snails, loads of them. Chili Cat, I have a fruit cage which is like a tunnel net. It doesn't take up much space when down. Where did you get it from, Chili Cat? Let us know that. Turbo Stream says, I hate nets too, but birds eat everything on our plots. Yeah, I know it is a real problem. Don't get me wrong. I understand why people do it. I hate them. I just really hate them. But that's because I suffer of ADD, and that barrier there means I don't get on and do the job until it becomes messy. So, yeah. Rob says she just walked in through the patio doors, looked around and left. Luckily, the dog did not see her. That's what I mean. I mean, we were lucky Roxy didn't see this bird. Otherwise, it would have been a complete and utter mess. Nigel says the mesh frames are only as thick as the battens. Join multiple together if required to size required. We'll have to watch that video and find out more about it. That being said, I mean, I got rid of my original chicken run, and I made that out of the similar sort of thing to what Nigel was talking about. Roof battens that I made into the rectangle, and then I stapled onto it wire mesh. It's lasted nearly 9 years, over 9 years. The only reason we got rid of it is because we got better chicken runs now. I never really liked the look of it, but it lasted quite a while. So definitely something in it. Garden skill is the tunnel net that Chili Kate was talking about, which you can probably find online or in other places, probably in a garden centre as well. I think I know the type that she's talking about. I've seen them a few times in various places. Right, it is 10:07, sorry. I think we're going to go, because I've just realised the time. Let's go have a look at the sew-along, which this week is mustard. Yes, it's time for this week's sew-along, and this week we are sowing mustard, one of my favourite leafy greens to grow. Very tough, well worth growing, and in fact can be used as a green manure. Now I'm sowing it in this bed here next to my onions. We've also got some carrots sown next to it, but I'm just pulling away the grass mulch and using my hoe to clear some of the weeds. This grass mulch has really helped keep this compost nice and moist. Now, as you can see, we've created a drill in this compost. Should really use a bit of string to make it nice and straight, but this is me we're talking about. About 1/2 centimetre deep, because these seeds are pretty small. And I'll show you these seeds right now. Pretty small, but 1/2 centimetre deep should do it. And then all we're going to do is sprinkle these seeds in and try and space them out, and then we'll leave them to grow. The soil is moist. We will give them also a good watering in, but as they germinate and grow, we will need to thin them out to about one plant every 10 centimetres. Then we pick the leaves, and I highly recommend we pick them when they are young, and they are absolutely delicious and a great thing to have. Many different types of I've forgotten what I'm talking about. There are many different types of mustard, but this one is a variety called Red Sun. Now, we have also sown some seeds over the last few weeks. This includes lettuce last week, which, as you can see here, has started to germinate quite well. So we're going to get plenty of lettuce from this veggie pot. The week before that, I think it was, when we sowed inside the large veggie pod, when I lift the lid open on that is, we've got some spinach, which, as you can see, has germinated quite well. A little bit sporadic with germination, but we can pick some of those leaves and enjoy it. Then we also have sown some cabbage seeds one week. This is a few weeks ago now. As you can see, they're all up and they are growing quite well. In fact, they're going to need putting up quite soon. And then one week we also sown some beans, which didn't germinate so far. Back to the studio. Indeed, that is the update. We've sown some mustards, an update from some of the last seeds we've sown. Plenty of things growing on. It's doing quite well, I've got to say. We're just hoping that the mustard is going to grow this week, and we can get some mustard as well. I know not many people are keen on mustard. I really like it because it's nice spicy flavour, add to many salads, and then if we leave it to go to seed and we harvest the seeds, we can make our own mustard sauce as well. 2 crops for 1. That's what I like about it. Pretty easy to grow. Keep them weed free, keep them moist, and they should do well. Turbo Stream says, I looked at a commercial cage, but it was north of £200. Be cheaper to buy frozen fruit. Yep, granted, that is one of the problem with that commercial cage. Robson Lotman Garden says, I built a cage 27 feet by 10 feet. That's quite a big one, isn't it? What did you build it out of? Nigel says, no problem with nets if mesh is small enough and also firmly secured along at the bottom. So many I see have the bottom flapping, inviting the birds in. Yeah, the one that I found with the bird that I had to cut away, they hadn't actually built a frame. They just threw it over, I think it was a cherry tree. They just threw it over that tree. So it was on the tree. The birds could easily get to the cherries anyway. And they just used the mesh to hang off, basically. If you're going to do it right. Turbo Stream says, I make sure the bottoms are well secured to stop the birds getting in. Absolutely. Absolutely. Please do. I know. I make a statement. I think I've said this before to you guys. I hate killing anything or harming anything in the garden, unless we're going to eat it, of course. But I hate the idea of even slug killer or snail killer or killing any birds or anything like that, unless we are going to eat it. I don't think it is right to kill anything. We've discussed that before. We won't get into that today. Nigel says, Biden has dropped out of the US president race. See if we can get him to join in here now. He has spare time. Has he really? Has he really? Has he really? So he has. So he has. Crikey, I didn't see that coming. Sorry, I missed one there. Degrass says, any photos? Yes, there are photos coming up in about 5 minutes. And then Rob says, I built it out of 4x4 and covered it the top with 90mm mesh and the sides with 12mm mesh. Excellent, excellent, excellent. Just goes to show, I mean, I think TurboStream wants something temporary or can be stored away easy, which I totally agree with. Turbo Stream says, I do want to do a good job of a cage. I pegged down a veggie mesh with cheap tech Trump head pegs. Excellent, excellent. Nice one, Nigel. And Trump is keeping his ear to the ground. Keeping an ear to the ground. Well, it just took me a minute there. I really shouldn't laugh at that, but it took me a minute there. Keeping an ear to the ground. Took me a minute there. Apologies, apologies. Oh, dearie me, dearie me. We don't do politics on this show. We don't do politics because it's not that type of show. But I can see it being contentious. Turbo Stream says, wood is expensive too, and netted. Everything's got expensive lately. That being said, I've noticed the price of wood has came down lately. It does seem to be a little bit cheaper these days. So now is probably a better time to go and buy it if you are. It might go up again. Who knows? Who knows what is going on? I can't believe it took me a few seconds to actually realize what was going on there. I feel very, very, very let down by myself there. Digrat says, I never do politics or religion. Absolutely right there. Same here. Same here. Two contentious issues that we're here to talk about gardening, not about either of those. Right. On that note, has anybody got any seed we should sow next week for the sow along? Any seed that we can sow next week for the sow along? I've got a few salad leaf ideas that I could do, but I don't think it's quite. We did salad leaf a few weeks ago. I wanted a couple of weeks ago do something, and mustard this week as well. So something a little bit different. Anything you want me to sow for the sow along, or shall I just come out with it? Let us know in the comments. And don't forget to, as I've said earlier, please do like and subscribe. Click the notifications so that you know when we go live and all that jazz. I've got to say, otherwise I get told off each time I don't say it by both Facebook and YouTube. I don't know how they know, but they do seem to know sometimes. Chicory or Wongbok? I sowed some radicchio today, so I could certainly do chicory or Wongbok. I can certainly do those. Certainly do those. Anybody else? What does anybody think? Chicory or Wongbok? Chicory or Wongbok? Two options that we have in the comments there. Thank you, Digwell, rescuing me with a suggestion there. And something a little bit different as well. Right, shall we have a look at your photos? It is that time of the show, time for your photos. Don't forget, if you ever do want to send any photos in, please do feel free to send them in. Details will come up at the end of this slideshow. The Shipyard Gardener, he's been repairing beds on the allotment, working hard in the allotment, as you can see here. I've got to say, it looks fantastic, that allotment. I'm very, very jealous. Digwell has harvested some lovely tomatoes, finally ripened, I believe, because they are struggling to ripen at the moment. If anybody else is having trouble, you're not the only one. Scott has pickled some gherkins. These look delicious, I've got to say. I'm assuming they're gherkins. I do like pickling items, especially gherkins and eggs and things like that. So great thing to go by there. Kate's tomato has finally got some colour as well. Another person that's been struggling with getting the tomatoes to ripen. It's been one of those times that tomatoes are really struggling. Stuart's got this for £3, a little hand rake. I've got to say, it's a bargain. It looks like it's Wolfgarten as well, but I could be wrong on that. It looks fantastic. Meadows has got this little tomato as well. Again, another tomato that seems to be the topic up for discussion. He says it was a small variety, so I'm guessing it's something like, what was it? What was the small one? I can't think what it's called, but he says it's a small variety, but that is pretty small, even so. Nathan's tomatoes are beginning to ripen. I think they were atomic grape and something else. They look fantastic, however. Absolutely fantastic. I love the look of that purple stripe. At first, I thought they were aubergines, so looks beautiful. Nicola's made this planter out of some of the blue plastic containers. I think she's got some squash growing in it, which is fantastic to see. A lot of work gone on there, I'm sure you can imagine. Now, Sarah has offered this. It's a shower door, obviously clear perspex. If anybody wants to make a cold frame out of it, she's in North Bristol. If that is of any use to anybody, she's got a post in the Facebook group, so please do go and check that out. It's no good for me, but if it is use to anybody, let her know, if it's still available, of course. Please do keep sending your photos in, as I said at the beginning. You can post them in our Facebook group, where most of our photos come from. You can send to me via social media, just like Shipyard Gardener did, or you can email me, richard@veggrowpodcast.co.uk. That's richard@veggrowpodcast.co.uk. So there we go. Lots going on there, as you can see. Turbo Stream, I can't believe this. I only opened this month's Supporters Club seeds today. That's bad, I know. We've just sown our last set of seeds today as well, believe it or not. You've got a lot of catching up to do, my friend, but you'll do it. You'll get there. I've got 3 ripe tomatoes, says Rob. They are really late this year, aren't they? Really struggling. A lot of people are having the same trouble, so it's a hot topic at the moment. Scott wants to know what's a variety of tomato that he had in that photo, and he goes on to say golden hour. Kate says, between us, we might make a tomato salad soon. Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed, because I would love to get my chops around a nice fresh tomato. I kind of forget what they taste like. It feels like it's been so long and so late since they've been ready. Turbo Stream says, I haven't got any tomatoes, probably because I didn't sow any. Last year's got blight before the fruits even formed. I had that the year before. It's not unusual at all. But this year, I'm surprised, actually. I was expecting blight with how wet it's been. But we haven't had it. We haven't had it. There's still chance. But so far, so good. So far, so good anyway. Digler says, did my first tomato taste test today. Yeah, it's a problem, isn't it? I spoke about this on the podcast on Monday. Tomatoes just don't seem to be ripening at the moment. I've got lots of green ones, but even the plants themselves are not as tall as I would expect them to be by this time of year. They're very, very short. And it's just, this year has just been one of the most challenging years, I found anyway, for growing your own. I know they've said food prices are going to go up. Based on what I'm seeing, I can completely see why. I don't have the space to sow all the seeds you send. I'm still trying to master the basic crops still. Fair enough. Very fair enough. Digwell says, very early for late blight. Yes, it is very early, but because we've had a few warnings, haven't we, from Blight Watch? But it's just purely down to, because it's been so damp, the humidity, especially now the sun's out, the humidity is there that might cause that perfect conditions for blight to affect our tomatoes. That's what I'm concerned about. Certainly something we got to keep a close eye on. Could be a problem. Could be a problem. Potatoes look okay, but I have seen some signs of blight on potatoes as well. And it's just a case of me trying to keep a very close eye and hope. Oh, what happened there? Hang on, I am still here. I thought we got away with it this week. There we go. There we go. I'm still here. But yeah, I'm hoping I was hoping we were going to get away with blight, but we've got to cope. Stream. Also, my mojo is still lacking this year, so just growing the basics and keeping the plot tiny. Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people's mojo this year has been waning a lot. It has been such a hard year. Slugs and snails, the wet weather, we're not getting the warmth. And it's been a battle, and I think a lot of people are struggling. Added to that, thefts as well, they've been increasing. And then I meant to say about this as well. When I spoke to the council the other day about the knives that I found on the allotment, I mentioned, I feel a bit bad for doing this. Oh, it's gone again. I mentioned that, why has it done that? I mentioned that my neighbours haven't been on their plot at all, which I didn't want to get them in trouble or anything, but I have been struggling to contact them. So they're uncontactable, which is meaning they're going to have to repossess their allotment. Seems a shame because they got so many currants, apple trees, 2 greenhouses, a shed on that allotment that is just going to end up bulldozed, literally bulldozed. So a little bit of a problem going on there, but that's one of the things that came out from chatting to our council about all the problems we've been having on the allotment. Very good about it. Very good, I've got to say. Digwell says early blight is not as damaging in his honest opinion. I kind of agree. Late blight is definitely the most devastating, but we've got to be vigilant. It is just this humidity more than anything that worries me with how bad it is. Rob says, I know how you feel talking about the mojo. I think everybody has been having this problem. And Turbo Stream, I was close to giving the plot up in the spring. Glad I didn't now, of course. This is one of the things that I like to do on a show is make us all recognize that we're all in the same boat. We're all feeling a bit like, oh my God, I'm struggling. My allotment isn't right. Everything's not right. But we're all in that same boat. And that's why we band together. We help each other out. We have so many empty plots on our site. Yeah, we've got a few. And it's kind of it's annoying because there's a lot of people after them as well. Digwell, anyone know a good blight warning app now that Blight Watch and Blight Spy has folded? What was the one you put in the Facebook group a few weeks ago? I'm trying to remember who I used. It's gone from the top of my head. It's based more for farmers, to be honest with you. I can't think who it was called. Again, know how you feel. Mine was due to my health. I hope you're feeling better now, Rob. Hope you're all over it. Right, it is 19:29, so I think it is time to start wrapping this show up. Hope you've enjoyed it. I hope it's been interesting, and I hope you feel inspired to go and create some type of edible hedging on your allotment or in your garden. If you do, let us know what you're going to be doing, and please do share photos, videos. Blight Spy, it was, but not there any longer. Anna Jones says Blight Cast as an option. I think it was Blight Spy I used, actually. Turbo Stream, take it easy, Rob. Next year will be a good one. We need to remind ourselves. Cheers. Have a good week, everyone. Indeed. Right. I'm going to wrap this up. I've already popped I didn't change the title. So I'm going to wrap this one up. We will be back again next Sunday at 6, where we're going to be discussing how we have tackled slugs and snails. I'm going to be making a slug snail trap, not out of a plastic bottle. And I'm going to be sowing chicory. So until next Sunday, if you enjoy your garden, enjoy the weather, have fun, and please take care. Cheers, guys. See you again next time.